Welcome everyone to Webinar Wednesday. Very exciting to have one of our customers here. In fact, we'll introduce them as we go through. But it's excited to really talk about what the process, procedures, standards, and of course looking at project management technology is, but not necessarily in a for-profit perspective, really looking directly at how do nonprofits take advantage of it, large, small, and where they fit. So as you know, this is Advisicon. We love talking about tools and technology, but really it's about optimizing your project program and portfolio management. And today we actually have our CIO from ELCA, and in fact, I'll let John kind of talk a little bit about himself, as well as our PMO director, Pat, from ELCA, to talk about their implementation of project technologies. John, do you want to kind of introduce yourself a little bit and just kind of share your background and perhaps maybe what brought you to ELCA?
Sure. Hi, everyone. John Beyer, been with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America now for 13 years. Originally was going to be a little waypoint in my career, but it's turned out to be much more than that, which I'm really, really grateful for. So started my career in consulting. Worked in the Arthur Anderson family, both on the consulting side and the internal side. Did a couple of startup stints as well, which was exciting. And then had the opportunity to come over to the ELCA to run their technology department. And it's just continued to be a blessing to be able to bring technology, good process, efficiency to an organization that is just so mission driven. So there's a lot of reward that it's not just pinching pennies every day, but it's actually making improvements, bringing value, and showing impact. So excited to have this conversation today.
Fantastic. Pat, you want to introduce yourself? Pat and I have spent quite a bit of time in the trenches, thinking through and wrestling through ideas and concepts, but ultimately it has to fit your culture. So.
Yeah, I definitely threw a curveball at Tim when we were talking about using Microsoft project tools for product management. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I've been with the organization 28 years, so my career has really fluctuated up and down from a programmer to sitting in this project management role. And thankfully, I put my hooks into John so he didn't go anywhere, because he was pretty responsible for me being able to go and get my PMP certification, and he led me down this path, which is been a real trip, and it's been a lot of fun despite the challenges. But it's been a great adventure because I have great opportunities that I don't know if I would have had anywhere else. So it's been a lot of changes going on. So I went and got my certification in change management as well. And so I think the partnering that I have with John on the technology and the project management side has been a nice marriage in order to get the organization to a spot where we're going to be taking it to down the road into the future. So I'm looking forward to talking more about this, Tim.
Oh, that's great. And from an Advisicon perspective, for 30 years we've been doing this, and the last 6-8 years we recognize that while we help nonprofits all the time, why don't we double down and really dig in? And it's interesting how what you guys have to wrestle through donations. You have all the big corporate Fortune 100 problems, but at the same time, you also have culture and things that are very different. And so the people work differently, the tools may work differently, and you also have no margin, no mission. So while we're very excited about your mission and what you guys are doing, it's been fun to kind of take a step back and not just do hey, let's throw a tool at this, but really think through how do we use a better together story, which led into product development, product management, which in the industry today, as we get in and take a look at what's actually hot or a commodity, is you hear the term agile. Everybody wants to be agile or some sort of a waterfall agile hybrid, maybe a wagile or a scrummerfall. But really the end state is about producing a product. And so while, yes, those could run a project, but it also drops under programs. There's a different alignment, in some cases, different technologies, but yet we still need demand and capacity planning. So we're going to go through a little bit of an overview of your background, what you guys do, and then some of the pain points that ELCA ran into. The technology solution, and this is kind of be a fun part because it's not just, one tool solves all problems. It's really using best of breed. And I think this will be important to come to that decision because a lot of organizations and nonprofits are in the same boat that you guys are. And then we'll talk about our learnings, our pitfalls, kind of the good, the bad, the ugly, and then recommendations for going forward. So without further ado, let's take a look at ELCA and just the size of, kind of what you are and what you do.
The ELCA, one of the largest mainline Protestant denominations in the country, with just about 3.3 million members, just south of 9,000 congregations, and billions of dollars raised every Sunday in those congregations. And it's all about, that local mission and how people reach people in their local context. Now, in the churchwide organization, we also have responsibilities for managing national programs. So ELCA World Hunger being one of the largest of them. We also have a good number of people who serve around the world in a missionary capacity. And hopefully starting in 2022, again, we have young adults in global mission being deployed throughout the world. And so it's a very, very complex organization. And so while we work for one specific organization, it's also about helping the ecology of all the different organizations that make up what the ELCA is, which is no less than a mountain to climb on a regular basis, based on all the challenges that are in the world. So, Tim, you said it, no mission without margin, so there is a business aspect to everything that we do. So, Pat and I will often talk people, process, technology, but it's so rooted in our mission and our values, because without those mission and those values, there wouldn't be an organization, there wouldn't be an ecology, there wouldn't be a denomination. So that's what keeps us working there. It's for those not familiar with how a denomination works, think of affiliated or association-based non-for-profit structured in a very similar way, where there's a main office, a national office, if you will, with lots of different organizations playing a part as that rolls up. So I'll kick it back over to you, and we'll kind of jump back into the rest of the agenda.
Yeah, so thousands, tens of thousands of church organizations. You have universities, colleges, you have different regions, you have different countries, and you are a service organization. You're providing and equipping them with the tools and the capacity to continue to function in their local missions. So basically, kind of bloom where you're planted. I love it because it's really a higher function of really making sure that you're looking at the collective needs of the entire organization, and then really kind of producing process and tools and capabilities that continue, especially in this evolving digital age, it's maddening how fast technology is changing, for sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about the direction and needs and goals, because I think it's important for us to kind of key this up, which is, again, where is ELCA going, right? What are some of the needs and targets that you're wrestling with? Because in doing strategic planning, you really want to do the right projects, right? Not just be really good at delivering one tool or one solution, but you really strategically need to think about that and then align to that. So, John, go ahead and kind of break that down. Talk a little bit about your service commitment and some of your vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you teed it up that way, Tim. And you also touched on, the ELCA being a service organization. And oftentimes in IT, we get so focused on the technical aspects of the system and making sure that the technology works, we lose sight of the why behind the technology. And the why is the services that we provide to the church. And so this probably dates back, 10, 11 years now, where we drafted a service commitment. And it wasn't really about technology. It was about people in IT providing services and solutions to the people that serve the mission of the organization. And together, we support the ELCA. So, we have words in there like secure, friendly, consistent, impactful, and cost-effective, but it's really about people helping people. And our job is to make sure that technology is woven in to make that work as efficient, as effective as possible. So make it easy to do work and make it easy for that work to spread. So if we take a look at a little bit of our vision now as well, we look at, sort of 5 key components, and I'll actually go from the bottom up. First and foremost, a lot of what the ELCA does and our teams do is we deal a lot with money. We deal a lot with personal information. We deal a lot with things that support the work of others, which has some sensitivity. It also is the brand of who the ELCA is, which is a very trusted brand, if you will. And so having good security, reducing risk for the organization, but reducing risk for our members and people that entrust us with either their information or their money is of the utmost importance. Also making sure that we have this value-driven culture within IT, making sure that everyone we bring in that works for the organization understands it's not just technology for technology's sake, but it's actually to provide value and impact. Looking at our digital experiences, so our outward face to the world, making sure that people that want to interact with us can do so productively and efficiently, but also that experience is focused on the relationship that we have with them in that digital ecosystem so that it feels like a very personal relationship. Inside of our organization, there's a lot of networks and a lot of relationships we manage as an organization, and they're deep and they're wide. And in today's world, shoot, we've been working from home for the better part of 19 months now. It has to be digitized. There's no option. Before, this was a great vision statement in 2019 and 2020 when we were working in an office, and this was admirable to try to be doing this. But it's really about now you have to be digital. Those are the table stakes that we operate in. And then finally, making sure that all of our systems are modern, flexible, that we're not so entrenched into this is always the way we've done it and we have to do it this way going forward, but to really be nimble, flexible, modern, create that ease of use experience. Because otherwise, people will just go pick a product off the shelf that they've seen on a commercial and they'll start using it. And the whole concept of an integrated ecosystem for technology starts to fall apart. And that's where the organization starts to really struggle. So, that's a lot, and I think, you had on one of the first slides, we had about 35 people in IT. The number may be closer to 40 these days, but that's a small number of people to support such a large thing.
Yes.
So when we look at our partnership with Microsoft, it was a no-brainer to really start there and making sure that we're tapping into that. One, because it's a great toolkit, but two, because of Microsoft's investment in the nonprofit space. They do a great job either providing donations or discounts to nonprofits to make sure that we can access their technologies. And it's a great set of tools, but it's also starting to be, well, it already is, but it's even improving more in terms of being an integrated ecosystem to make sure that the tools work together. It adds the security, and so it provides a nice baseline that we can build from in terms of security. It also, I mentioned parts of the ecology. It lets smaller organizations, so we've worked for a very large organization, but small organizations that might have a $10 million budget and 2 or 3 people working for them, right? They need easy to use technology. So forming that Microsoft partnership, informing the entire ecology about how to access and how to use it is really important. And one last point is when we're out there in the talent fight, the job market is so tight these days. We can't battle for talent on a Linux, MySQL, open ecosystem platform. We can't pay those types of fees, but we can find great talent of people who are good at using Microsoft technologies. The barrier to entry is a little bit older, so it lets us participate, in that talent acquisition process a little bit easier as well.
John, that's awesome to hear. And it's interesting because we are living in an age, they call it the Great Resignation, where, during COVID, it was any port in the storm, right? People just hunkered down, but now they don't have to, and they're getting up and they're leaving, or they recognize, hey, well, I thought this was something I like to do. I'm not necessarily impassioned about it. And as we look at the millennials and the Gen X, Ys, and Zers, we call them the Gen Zennials, they want to have a mission. They want to have passion for what they're doing. And yet they are high tech, but low tech, right? They want to make sure to get in, get out, get back to work. I don't want to work in some convoluted, expensive, hard to use, enterprise tool system. So it's got to be nimble. It's got to be agile. And I think that's really thinking through that is not only you guys as a small team delivering a lot for a large audience, but also that how do you scale? Like, how do we take the minimum requisite skill sets for people we're bringing into the organization and really saying, hey, this is our mission, and we're going to continue to deliver that, but we have a way that's scalable and something that we can actually put in a backpack and use. So, Pat, I know those are some of the things that we even wrestled with in our conversations, which is how do we get people to use the tool? Just because we built it doesn't mean they're going to use it.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's all based upon what John was saying with relationships. You can get any tool off the shelf now, and it'll do project management. Actually, now we're getting to the point where you can do accounting automated. You can do other different things automated. So it really stems to the relationships that we have. And as you said, all the new age groups base it all on relationships, especially in nonprofit.
Yep, absolutely. Well, in terms of PPM technology, and PPM being project, program, portfolio, task, work management, clearly, there are a lot of tools out there, and Advisicon is tool agnostic, but we also specialize in the ones that are used most commonly, including like the Microsoft stack. But in the ecosystem, the world is wrestling with kind of three stages, which is, hey, I got this task management checklist thing I need to get done, and I just need a whiteboard or bulletin board or a notepad by my desk, to, hey, we have teams that need to come together and work to make sure we're delivering something. Hey, what are you working on? What am I working on? Do I have a card? Do I have an assignment? And yet I don't want to make it very formal. I need to make it quick and efficient, and we need to report status on that. And as we look at, moving up the ladder or up the stair steps in maturity, you have certainly Microsoft Project where you have demand and capacity planning. But even Microsoft is dropping new tools like their flagship, project operations, is the monolithic, it's the big ERP system that hooks to finance and operations and hooks to CRM and IT and help desk. But do we need to go all the way up there for that? Do I need a semi parked in my front yard when really I just got to go down to the store and back, and I need to do so efficiently and with the cost of gas? Oh my gosh, can we make that efficient? So, well, maybe I'll drop back down to the Hyundai or if I can afford a Tesla, we'll get a Tesla and, we'll drive it there. But if there's not a charging station, or really I need to kind of pivot between a semi, need to a small commuter, how do we do that? And I think that's, Pat, where we started was, how do we get onto this journey to help you guys figure out what is the methodology? What is the best practices? So do you want to talk through some of what you went through in your evolution to deliver and continue to deliver? Because you didn't stop when we met and said, okay, stop all product, all delivery, programming. John would not let off the gas from moving forward. So.
Yeah, and I think, Tim, this was the headbanging that we did because I had my own inner turmoil, because John and I were talking about this, and he's like, Pat, we gotta focus on products. And I'm like, doggone it, I just spent all this time on projects. What are you talking about? But it ultimately made sense just because as we talked about our projects and how we were moving, did we deliver on time? Did we deliver on scope? Did we deliver under budget or exactly as promised? And as everybody probably who's watching this knows, you go from A to Z. Once you get to Z, that's not what people wanted. So that was starting to play into my thinking. But as I latched on to what John was doing, we were hearing more about this VUCA world, this ever-changing world. And as you talked about the AIDS generation, the pandemic and everything that was happening, we were already behind the 8 ball if we were to go down the project management road, because we have so many ceremonies and things we have to do. We had to actually get smart and get agile ourselves without even realizing it, and to say, no, I think we need to go with a different approach. And as we've talked about before, it's all about the relationships. What do people want? How do we get people to continue to go into the pews at our congregations? How do we get our rostered ministers to continue to grow to the next generation? What's going to bring them to the church? And so that's why it started to make more sense. But I'll tell you, it was a couple of years before John actually convinced me that this was where we needed to go. But again, persistence and being able to trust him to know that he's not leading me down a bad path helped me, again, to change my mindset. So again, as we talked about, Tim, the best way to go about it, we started to go down the tools. And so being relationship focused, all of the other tools that we looked at was just about a tool. It was just about a SharePoint tool. It was about something free. And the hardest thing was getting the people involved to actually take an investment of seeing this through. So that's why, as we partnered with Advisicon more about what is the experience we want to have, it's the A to Z of being agile and nimble, if you will. It's how do we use Microsoft technology as an input forum. So using Microsoft Forms to be able to take the information and say, we want the basic idea of what you hope to produce. Take some time to input and assess. So really creating a PMO made of IT leadership, our business analysts who are now product managers, and then our project managers who are now Scrum Masters. and be able to assess and take the input and say, okay, how do we validate this? How do we, as John said, create value and create input for the organization? And then as we started to look at, well, we have 35 to 40 people in IT, but they're working on both incidents as well as future investments. So we had to look at a resource, and that's where, Tim, you and I wrestled with this. Okay, well then how do we resource it? How do we do it by time? And what's the right tool? And you said project, and it didn't register with me of using project. But again, going back to what Microsoft does well is being able to forecast in project. So that was the nice tool that we were able to do. And then that allows us to go to our resource supervisors and say, you know, a couple of months, we're going to be working on this new initiative. Can I steal an engineer? Can I steal a developer for this? And that's what the Microsoft project tool is really, really helpful for. And then going into the prioritization, we just had a conversation this morning where John and I were talking about prioritization versus timeline. And I keep having to hit my head to say, okay, it's not the same thing, because in Agile, there is no timeline. There is no cost constraints there. But again, it's what's the priority of delivering value and impact. So using Microsoft Project as well as Power BI is going to be very helpful for us. And we went live with ADO in getting all of the 6 product backlog lines that we have into ADO. So we're now using that, and we're going to start to use some of the things in regards to epics, to features, to user stories and tasks. And it's educating our groups, our Scrum Masters, our product managers, to be able to use the tool effectively, but keep the presentation to our business stakeholders in front of them, just to say, this is what we're working on, this is what we're going to deliver. And it's really been effective so far in a couple of our initiatives. We're currently running a number of scrums. So actually our scrums are outnumbering our project initiatives right now, which is a huge mind shift and a huge success. And it's possible. I guess that's my encouragement for everybody. It is possible to do that. We haven't diminished all of our projects because there are some that are on a very strict timeline, but we know we can live harmoniously. And then as far as progress and updates, it's being able to show that using ADO, being able to use SharePoint, and being able to use Microsoft Project to do that. And so then going over to our business stakeholders and being able to produce outputs, it's giving them that opportunity within Power BI, ADO, and Project to show them this is the progress that's being made. These are the hindrances we're running into. The daily stand-ups are really helping with that. And then the exercises of doing retrospectives and looking at future work. Using the Microsoft tools has been really a good roadmap for us to focus on, because now we don't have to worry so much about, well, if we use product B, how do we get it to integrate with product C, just because they're free. I mean, John had mentioned the benefits of a nonprofit, and so we're reaping that by utilizing tools that really integrate nicely with each other. And again, to the whole point of building these relationships, being able to be productive and being able to show the value of what IT is delivering, not only with technology solutions, but also the planning and resourcing of ways of producing our deliverables. Mm-hmm. So really exciting to get to that point now.
Yeah, kind of if I can paraphrase some of this, which is really thinking from, beginning to end. John's vision requires multiple programs or projects to be running in parallel. And we have this release schedule. We actually have to get releases done, right, John? There's things that have to be done by a particular time period. And it's not just, hey, it's just one tool, one solution, one thing. There's an infrastructure, there's databases, there's code libraries. And so when you think about working with the tools and the teams, you want people in your organization, your teams, to use the right tools for the job. ADO, which people go, what's ADO? It says Azure DevOps, which used to be Team Foundation Server and Visual Studio, is the world that developers live in. And, organizations had spun up Jira in the past, and Microsoft has made a huge investment to mature this tool to say, yeah, put your requirements, put your user stories. Let's break down the code libraries, the bugs, the defects, and we'll manage that in a work management environment, right? We'll let people make sure these things are getting done and they can collaborate. And that's the right place for really product development to take place from the engineering perspective. But when we ask, hey, we're back to that release schedule thing, it's not just it's a series of sprints. It really is, hey, over time, who do we need? What do we need? And if something slips, what's the downstream impact? Well, Azure DevOps doesn't do that. That's not its purpose. But that's where Microsoft Project says, look, we can actually take a lot of the details, leave them in Planner or leave them in ADO and let people use and work there. And from a PMO perspective, our schedules just went from 500 rows down to 10, right? We really can do our demand and capacity planning, saying, look, I got a time phase schedule where we can look at milestones and what we're trying to do and who we need it by, and it feeds all the reports just as if you did have all the details there, but we didn't have to do that. And I think, Pat, the little the little engine that could is Microsoft Teams, right? It allows you to bundle all this into a connection where you can chat and have recordings and videos and topics. So taking simple intake from a form, you fill it out. It's a form that just fills a list in SharePoint, non-invasive, easy to manage, high visibility. People can check it. You can put alerts and reminders to all the way to doing, what we call product development and release using not just one tool, but really a best of breed and not over-engineering any one of those was what will make you guys, I think, successful. And I think it took a while for us to get there. And we had to ideate and we had to sell John and his leadership team. And Pat, we also had to kind of think through this from a PMO perspective. Does that work? So I was excited to be part of this journey. I know some of our other team were as well. And I think this is an interesting change from what we have seen in the past. But I will tell you, you guys are not alone. Other organizations are recognizing, hey, I don't have to be all in on one thing, or I don't have to try and band-aid all my free tools together. I actually get bang for buck by being in the same ecosystem. I called it the Dataverse.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Go into key learnings and pitfalls. I'll kick that off. I think there's two that stand out for me. One is that know that you're going to make mistakes along the way because this is sort of on the edges. This is something new. But what I'll say is, if you look at the way that traditional IT is going, a lot of the heavy lifting that IT organizations used to do, which is, okay, when are we going to upgrade Office? When are we going to upgrade our Exchange server? When are we going to upgrade all these legacy on-premise systems? Is, if not going away, it's gone for a lot of organizations. Mm-hmm. So how do traditional IT organizations need to sort of relook at this ability to provide value to the organization, which previously was measured in keeping those Office systems up to date, current, and sort of reliable, right? The old thing was, how often does your Exchange server go down, right? No longer does my IT team and hopefully others have to worry about that based on what's going on with the cloud, Office 365, M365, and other software stacks. So it only made sense to make this product leap, utilizing the Microsoft toolkits to say, how are we now going to incrementally add value on top of each one of those systems? And so I think the key learning is being open to making that leap, because it is going to provide such value to your organizations by making those little changes that just adapt to the needs or the issues that the organization is having. But that pitfall is like, yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be real hard, and it's going to be new. And they all the tools, even though it's in the Microsoft ecosystem, they don't all plug and play exactly like we want them to, but they will. Microsoft has a vested interest in making them happen. So I'm thankful for all the work Pat put into this, and with you, Tim, and that, we got down a path, we had to back out, we went somewhere else, we learned, we iterated, and ultimately we're going to have great visibility, because one of the things I continuously stress in this hybrid world is the balance of trust and accountability. You have to trust your team that they're going to do good work, but we also have to be able to hold ourselves accountable that we're producing that value and that impact. And by having systems like this, we're able to manage that delicate balance, letting Pat and his team go off and do that work and trusting that they're going to do the right thing for the organization, and then being able to show the organization, here's what we've produced when we get through the end of the cycle, and be able to have those reports coming out in Power BI or ADO or whatever it might be.
Yeah, it's interesting that John talks about that, because a lot of it is the change management. It's the agile mindset that we may have had that we didn't even realize from the get-go. But I think it started, we didn't mention this. John had changed our telephony to go from desktop handsets to headsets, which again gave us the permission to actually be hybrid and remote. So we've actually been going on this Microsoft path for a while, not knowing that we were going to run into this whole pandemic thing. But if we weren't, I think we would have really suffered in our communications with our constituents. So again, kudos to him to have that vision to take us down there. But he's also seeing, again, what's next. And so the change management and the agile mindset is something a lot of our organization at the ELCA, the people there might actually have, they just don't realize it. And I think that's what we're doing, knowing that the world is changing so much. It's having them to adapt to a new way of thinking. Because again, as John said, it's not about keeping our servers up anymore. It's how do we best partner with you to carry out your mission? But it is a lot of skill set and role development. And as he's learned with me, a lot of a stubbornness that has to be changed. It's a matter of, I'm going to fight you until I'm either dead or I don't have the energy anymore. So thankfully, it's not the dead part. But that's what we're doing now is we're working with our organization in this relational way to get them developed that way. Something I think every organization is going to go through is the operational work that has to be done versus what are we doing just to promote. And having a core of IT folks and being able to manage them in that way is going to be a challenge and kind of a juggling contest that we have to do, but we're making it work so far. And then John had already mentioned the people process technology assessment. We were very successful rolling out a Scrum for contract management, but then we got into a process question in which we're addressing this week. So it's definitely proven its wealth and its value to us at this point.
This is exciting, and I will say one of the number one things that we run into, certainly with nonprofit organizations, is culture change, right? So the tools are evolving. You have to be prepared to evolve with them, and sometimes it does take a VUCA event, to force an organization over the threshold. But usually, it's either adapt or go extinct. Can't do that. So as your mission is continue to be going on, we do have to step into the new frontier. And it is a little bumping. Be prepared to learn. I think, John, you said it well. Be prepared to make mistakes. It's okay. Our first estimates are going to be just that. We're not good at estimating because we've never recorded what we plan to do versus what we actually did. So have some grace, right? Have some grace with that. Look at the information, but evolve. Use that information to continue to improve that. And people recognize that, if it's not perfect in the get-go, that they are part of the solution. So having that solution mindset, which is, how do we do better? Great. I love seeing that in scrums, right? Going because we prepare for our next scrum or we do our lessons learned. We don't wait till the end of the project. We do it right there so that we can eke those benefits immediately back into improving what we're doing. The technologies, there's a lot of tools out there, and some of them, whether you're band-aiding them together or on the Microsoft platform, you'll find a way to make that work. But boy, if you can just use the Power BI to read that information, it changes from I'm physically carrying and feeding for an environment to now I'm spending time doing machine learning. I'm learning the analytics, making better predictive forecasting so that we can, when we go out and we ask for donations or we do have funding that's going on, that we can be better accountable to our stakeholders. So I love to see this in the journey that people go through. Well, we'd love to be here all day, but I know John probably has a meeting and to run to. I probably do, but let's just kind of recap here and kind of summarize a lot of what we found and what we've seen. One point I would make is that just because it's hard or new, don't give up, right? You really need to think about, look, the platforms are changing. You do need to evolve. You may have to embrace new things. But what did Solomon say? There's nothing new under the sun. So I guarantee you, while the interface might look a little different, there's nothing new under the sun. You're still going to deliver projects. Your teams are going to work together. They're going to try and accomplish the mission. We just want to give them the best tools so that they're equipped to move forward. So measure twice, right? Plan, really have that conversation. And then when you begin executing, you're going to cut once. So I love kind of getting that model, certainly bringing my builder background into that. So Pat, John, let's just kind of recap here and for people to kind of learn from what we've seen.
Definitely. I think the product management with project management approach is still going to happen. The tools themselves, Microsoft has been great to work with us, and there's more initiatives that we're going to look at in regards to how we use M365 and Office 365, and maybe people outside of our organization or outside of the walls of our office. We've talked about it enough for the people, process, and technology harmony, that it's necessary, and it's being revealed because we can implement any tool, but we need those people and we need the process to come along with us. And John talked about it too, just what's going to come in the future from all of these tools, just from my standpoint.
Good. John, any pearls of wisdom before we close?
No, but I see the last point here around Microsoft tool integration, and people often knock Microsoft for not being out in front with the features as soon as they come along. And if you look at some of the modern product and product management tools, might they lag a feature here and there? Sure they will, but they're also going to go build it. They obviously have the capital and the infrastructure to go build and to catch up pretty darn quickly. So what's on the edge of this for us? OKR tracking, right? Microsoft didn't have a capability, so they went to buy it. And so instead of us getting tooled to death as an organization and buying tools from a number of different places, that investment in Microsoft continues to pay off beyond what's in the bag today, because they're going to continue to invest in improving what's in that bag, but also adding new things into that. So again, it's a lot about what we did with what they made available to us and now moving into this product management journey, but it's also trusting that they're going to be there and continue to develop, and we're going to be able to take advantage of that as somebody who's made that investment.
Yeah, there's a great bang for buck. What's interesting, working with the engineering teams, I get frustrated, like, why can't we do this? And they said, you know what? Because we need to bring all the tools together uniformly. We're moving forward like a Greek phalanx, right? We are going to march forward. We take ground. We don't give it back. Yeah, it may be a little slow progressively, but at least we can learn. But when things are coming, in fact, now they're releasing things on a weekly cadence. So what used to be a 3-year, wait for 3 years and do all the requirements gathering and then build it, and then you get something maybe in 3 years that didn't quite meet what's the market's changed, doesn't happen anymore. It's much more iterative. And that should be true with what you guys are doing, both, with ELCA and in any organization, is that be iterative, right? Be iterative with the mindset of, hey, maybe the values or priorities may shift, budgets may shift, but you'll get that value. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. This was very helpful, and I really hope if anybody has more questions, they can reach out directly or certainly send myself or Advisicon, anyone here, a note. I'd love to share that with you. And again, as we mentioned, that we post this out on YouTube. We'll also be putting this in our learning management channel. And again, we love doing these kind of weekly webinars, so we'll do it one every other week to continue to help put that out for folks. If you are a PMP and you want PDUs, go check out our LMS. It's free as well. This is part of what we love to give back to the community. So again, John, Pat, again, thank you so much for your time and just your expertise. Love sharing and love having you guys here.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks,
All
Tim.
right.